How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Infinite Sports. I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, to give you my Week 3 picks in the NFL. Before we do that, I do want to recap last night's game between the Bills and the Dolphins. The Bills winning 31-21 in a pretty competitive game, which, look, once again, I fell into the trap of Dolphins are getting a lot of points going up against the Bills, and I say, you can have your points. I'll take the Bills. And the Dolphins got up for this game. They played well. The game was tied, late in the second half. But then the Bills were able to put together a touchdown drive, which was caused by roughing the kicker that set that up. But yeah, the Dolphins got up for this game, and they did play well. And it really showed me that despite this loss last night, they're still playing for Mike McDaniel. Even though they're 0-3, and I still think that seat is warm, and if they continue to lose games, that seat's going to get very hot again. But I will say, especially these last two games, game one of the season against the Colts, they got blown out. It looked like they're not ready to play, and he's going to be gone very quickly. But these last 2 weeks, I know against New England, it ended poorly with, Tua turning the ball over, and then that also happened last night. But they look a lot better than they've had, especially again the Week 1 loss against the Colts. And on top of that, with the issues on the offensive line and even in the secondary last night, dealing with a ton of injuries and guys were getting hurt last night, even in the game, they still forced Josh Allen in that offense off the field a few times, got some stops. But they just came up. They came up short. Right away, I could tell right away that this was going to be a very competitive game because of what the Dolphins did on the opening kickoff. D. Estridge took the ball on the opening kickoff for 54 yards. So already they're in Bills territory on the plus side of the field, and they score a touchdown. Ollie Gordon from 2 yards out scores to make it 7-0. The Bills did respond. The first two possessions for the Bills were touchdowns. Dolan Kincaid made a nice play on the first touchdown for the Bills, 20 yards out, pass from Josh Allen. And then on their second drive, Allen hit the one of the backup tight ends for a 5-yard touchdown. So the Bills were up 14-7. So then all of a sudden I was like a reverse 180. I'm like, all right, well now the Bills look like they're going to run away with this thing. Because then the Dolphins punted again. They went 3 and out after the opening drive twice, and the Bills were driving. Now, the Dolphins got a big stop to hold the Bills out of the end zone, but Matt Prater misses a 39-yard field goal. And I thought it got touched. I thought it got blocked, partially blocked. That's why the kick looked so poor, but he just shanked it. So the Bills don't get points out of that. Dolphins take advantage of that. They go 16 plays, 71 yards right before the end of the half, and they do everything they can to make sure that the Bills do not get the ball with any time left before the end of the half. And Tua Tagovailoa hits Jalen Waddle from 3 yards out for the touchdown. There was a big cushion on that play, too. The defensive back for the Bills really was backing off of him on that, and Waddle was able to, run that slant for the touchdown with all that with all that cushion to tie the game. Another thing, too, the Bills' third down defense, very poor last night. it just seemed like every third down the Dolphins converted. They finished last night 10 of 15 on third down. So this Bills defense still has issues. I know against the Jets they played well. The Jets really couldn't get anything going offensively, but you could also say, well, that's because it's the Jets. But yeah, the Bills defense has definitely struggled in these first 3 weeks. Against the Ravens you give up 40 points, and then here against the Dolphins, who are struggling, are now 0-3. They couldn't get off the field on third down. So we go into the half, and the game is tied. Now, interesting sequence before the end of the half. So the Bills go for the kneel down, because there wasn't enough time to really do anything. And it looked like Josh Allen fumbled, but he just threw it back to the ref, and then that was it. We went into the half. But I think because it happened so quickly, he kneeled down when the ball was snapped, and then I guess whatever happened, the ball got away from him, and he picked it back up and just handed it to the ref. So I guess because it happened so quickly, because if you're on the sidelines, you think that's a live ball. But yeah, so that was interesting. So yeah, going into the half, it was a tie game, but then the Bills come out in the third quarter. They go right down the field because the Dolphins got the ball to start the game, and James Cook, who had a pretty good game, he scored a touchdown from 2 yards out to make it 21-14 at that point, and then it was just a punt game. Dolphins just again run 3 plays on their next 2 drives, 6 plays combined. -1 yards on their first drive of the second half, and then only 5 yards on the second drive. But then they get the Bills to punt. Even though the Dolphins were punting, the Bills defense was getting the Bills defense was getting stops, but the Dolphins defense was getting stops. And then all of a sudden they put together another touchdown drive. 3rd and 14, they pick up a big chunk. They actually do a lateral play. I forgot about this. So it was passed to Washington. Then he lateraled it to Achane, who gained another 7 yards. So they went for it on 4th and 4, and Tua hit Jalen Waddle for a 15-yard reception. And then that set up the Tyreek Hill touchdown from 5 yards out on 2nd and goal later in the drive. But then the Bills, this was the turning point in the game. So the Bills are off the field, 4th and 7. They're punting back to the Dolphins, and then the Dolphins get charged with the roughing the kicker. And then the Bills turn that into 7 points. Josh Allen connects with Khalil Shakir for a 15-yard touchdown. And then the Dolphins have a chance to respond, and Tua unfortunately throws a pick to Bernard, who read the route, and he returned it for 24 yards. The Bills did kick a field goal. Prater kicked a field goal later to make it a 2-possession game from 48 yards out. The Dolphins did get the ball back, didn't do anything with it. The game at that point is really out of reach. And the Dolphins ended up losing a tough game. But like I said, I thought, at times the defense, they held strong, got the Bills off the field. The offense converting on 3rd down. Tua didn't really light up their stat sheet. But like I said, the offense made plays on 3rd down. They held in there, but, it just comes down to a bad decision at the end of the game. And he only threw for 146 yards. Tyreek Hill was the leading receiver, had 49 yards and a touchdown. Waddle had a touchdown. The defense got to Josh Allen a couple times. But look, Tua said it earlier in the week. He's not half the player that Josh Allen is. Josh Allen could do so many different things, and Tua's limited at what he can do. They don't really have that vertical passing game, the deep ball. You saw it last week against the Patriots, but you don't see that consistently out of this offense. And a lot of it is just motion and running play, getting the running backs out in space. How many times you see that same play with Achane that they run? And then last night he got blown up at one point. So it's just the Dolphins' offense, although they have very good skill position players, they're kind of limited at what they can do. Because look, Tua, I don't think is the worst quarterback to have, but when we talk about the quarterbacks in the upper echelon, he's not there, and he even admitted it. He showed self-awareness. So, but yeah, tough loss for the Dolphins. They fall to 0-3. Now, I don't think their season is completely over because watching the broadcast last night, the post game, they got the Jets coming up. They got the Panthers coming up. There are some very winnable games coming up on their schedule. They do have the Chargers as well, which is going to be a tough game. But then after the Chargers, let me see. Who's the other team that they have on the schedule? Because like I said, it was the Panthers. Oh, and then they have the Browns in Cleveland, which they got a good defense. So that's not going to be a cakewalk. But, 3 of the next 4 games are winnable. So, their season is not over. And like I said, they definitely showed you something these last couple of games, that they're still playing for their head coach, and they're starting to get into a little bit more of a rhythm. Like at times, Tua was in a rhythm last night. But then at the very end of the game, roughing the kicker and then the interception, that's ultimately what cost them. Maybe you could have put together a drive before that, other than the touchdown drive to Tyreek Hill. Because the teams were exchanging punts. So, yeah, Dolphins are 0-3. Bills are 3-0. Josh Allen, another efficient game last night. 3 more touchdowns. Putting on a very good encore performance for MVP. James Cook, like I said, had a good game last night. Bills ran the ball for 157 yards last night. The rushing touchdown by James Cook. Dalton Kincaid had a good game. Also, almost had another touchdown, I believe, but ended up dropping it. Dalton Kincaid had 5 for 66 and a touchdown. Khalil Shakir, 4 for 45 and a touchdown. Elijah Moore had 2 for 30, was making plays. The Bills' defense, no sacks of Tua Tagovailoa last night. It's a problem. And when you go up, look, you went up against the Ravens, and they got, they were fortunate to win that game, but, when you play some of these other teams that you're going to be going, actually, looking at this schedule, I mean, there's not a lot of tough games on the Bills' schedule. They got the Saints next week. They got the Patriots the following week. I mean, divisional game. At the Falcons, Falcons' defense looks pretty good, but I still look at the Bills as the better team. Then they go into the bye. They got the Panthers coming out of the bye. You do have the Chiefs at home week 9. Then you got the Dolphins again. You got the Bucks, the Texans, the Steelers, the Bengals at home with Joe Burrow, question mark? Maybe not. Patriots, Browns, Eagles at home week 17 is going to be tough. And then the Jets at home. So their schedule is pretty easy. They could have the top seed in the AFC. We'll see. So let's get into the picks now. So already I'm 0-1. Last week, not great against the spread. I went 6-10. I did kind of get screwed by, some of these backdoor covers and just teams blowing leads. Like the Jaguars I had, it looked like they were going to win that game, especially with Burrow going down and Jake Browning was turning the ball over. But the Jags ended up giving that game away. The worst one was definitely the Cardinals. The Cardinals were up by so much, and then they just, Kyler Murray throws a pick, and then the Panthers recover an onside kick. They turn that into a touchdown. So I that wasn't good there. I picked the Texans. They were winning. They were covering. And then the Bucs go right down the field to win the game. So, yeah, there were some games that, I was on the losing end of that maybe I should have won. So let's see if I fare better this week. So we'll start off with the Green Bay Packers and the Cleveland Browns. All right, the Packers look like one of the best teams in the NFL right now. Their defense is playing really well. Against 2 playoff teams last year, against the Lions, who were the number 1 seed last year, against the Commanders, who made it to the NFC Championship game. This defense made these offenses look pretty pedestrian. And Micah Parsons is really making an impact despite not playing all the snaps on defense. And Jordan Love is playing some efficient ball. It seems to be a different guy every week. Now with Jaden Reed going down, guys are going to have to step up even more. But Tucker Kraft has looked good these first 2 weeks. He might not play actually in this game against the Browns, so that's something to keep an eye on. Romeo Doubs had a good game week 1. They also recently extended, I think I brought this up, they recently extended Christian Watson. He's going to be back hopefully later in the season. Getting him back would be very important for this offense. Josh Jacobs continues to score rushing touchdowns every week. Team looks very good. Actually, Jacobs appeared in the injury report this week, but I think he should play. The spread against the Browns, it opened up at 8.5. It's now down to 7.5. I actually do like the Browns to cover. I think they keep it within the number because I do think this Browns defense is still pretty good. And I think the offense of the Browns could do just enough to keep it close. But listen, you got Joe Flacco back there, and we saw a little bit of Dylan Gabriel last week, so it's only a matter of time before he's going to come in and Flacco's going to be on the bench. Flacco is still, one of the guys from the previous era that's still just a pocket passer, can't really move around. And especially with this Packers defense and how aggressive they are definitely going to get after Flacco. But I do think this is, I'm going to take the home team with the points, but I will say the Packers are going to win. So that's how I look at this game. Then the next game we got Pittsburgh Steelers and the New England Patriots. This is a tough game to pick. The Patriots definitely looked better last week. Got the win against the Dolphins. Drake May had a good game. They had the kick return for a touchdown. The defense forced turnovers. And then for the Steelers, a couple of mishaps with the Rodgers interception in the end zone and Caleb Johnson not knowing the new kickoff rules. That led to 7 points. And also just, the Steelers defense still looks very shaky early on in the season. Not doing a great job at stopping the run. I mean, Kenneth Walker scored a 20-yard touchdown on 3rd and goal. And on top of that, they're not protecting Aaron Rodgers that well. So, having said all that, you think I'm taking the Patriots. Now, I'm going to take the Steelers in this game to get back on track, get the win here. I think Rodgers will make plays. This Patriots defense is, still pretty good, and Christian Gonzalez, I think, is going to play for this game. Their young corner. So, I think if the Steelers can clean up some of these mental errors, I think they can win this game. So I'm going to take them. Patriots are a 1.5-point underdog, but I'm going to take the Steelers in this game to get the win. All right, so now we got an NFC South matchup: Falcons-Panthers. Panthers getting 5.5 points. It was at 4.5. Now it went up to 5.5. I'm looking on CBS, by the way. That's how I go. That's how I go off of the lines, is by CBS. Falcons defense played really well on Sunday against J.J. McCarthy and the Vikings in a hostile environment. Panthers almost pulled off a miraculous comeback against the Cardinals, but I think that had more to do with what the Cardinals were doing wrong as opposed to what the Panthers were doing. I mean, the Panthers capitalized on the Cardinals' mistakes, but I still don't trust the Panthers. All right, I'm not to say that I really trust the Falcons. I mean, is this defense legit? I mean, they gave Baker Mayfield problems a couple weeks ago, and then the Bucs stepped up, and Baker and that offense put together a game-winning drive. Baker hit Emeka Ibuka. And then, look at what they did to the Vikings offense. I mean, J.J. McCarthy was playing his second career game. So, I think this is another opportunity for the Falcons defense to take advantage of a struggling Panthers team. I like that matchup for the defense. And also, Bijan Robinson, has played really well so far this year. Especially last week against a tough defense. Michael Penix in that passing game was really struggling. You had Drake London fumbling the football in that game. I think Bijan is going to have a big game. And I think Michael Penix will make enough plays. And the Falcons defense will keep this Panthers offense at bay, that they win and they cover the numbers. So I like the Falcons in that game. All right, so now we got an AFC South matchup here. We got the Texans and the Jaguars. Both teams coming off losses. The Texans are 0-2. Jaguars are 1-1. They're a 1.5-point favorite at home. Look, the Texans could have won that game. It's just that game had a very fast start and a very, fast finish. With both teams exchanging touchdowns. C.J. Stroud in the middle of that game was struggling, was missing throws, was under pressure, all game long. The Jaguars basically gave away that game to the Bengals. They were getting takeaways. Jake Browning was throwing a bunch of interceptions, and they still lost the game. Trevor Lawrence threw a couple of picks as well. I'm taking the Texans again. I just, at some point, they're going to win a game, right? They have to. They got the better defense. I think there's a sense of urgency there for DeMeco Ryans and this team to get a win. All right, and I didn't like what I saw with what the Jaguars did last week, giving away that game. So for the third week in a row, actually no, I took the Rams week 1, but for the second week in a row, I'm taking the Texans with the points and to win the game outright. Now we got an interesting game here, the game of the backup quarterback. So we got Jake Browning and the Cincinnati Bengals. Jake Browning was cut by the Vikings. And that soundbite of him, going off saying you shouldn't have cut me. Well, he said an expletive in there, but I'm not going to say it, obviously. He's going up against his former team that cut him. And then for the Vikings, no J.J. McCarthy for a couple of weeks with the high ankle sprain. You got Carson Wentz stepping in and taking the charge. Look, the Vikings, that was a tough loss for them. Their offense really hasn't gotten it going. Despite them winning in week 1, that was really, they put together a good couple of drives, and that was it. Look, the Bengals defense, I still don't trust. All right, Jake Browning turned the ball over a lot last week. Maybe with the full week of preparation to be the starter, he'll be more efficient. But I still don't trust this Bengals defense. I trust the Vikings defense. I trust Kevin O'Connell and this team, and I think Carson Wentz is going to play well. Look again. You look, same thing I was saying about J.J. McCarthy. Look at what Carson Wentz has at his disposal. Okay, this might be the best supporting cast that Carson Wentz has ever had since being a starting quarterback. I know he should have won the MVP. Well, had he not have gotten hurt, he could have won the MVP back in 2017. But look at this team. Who was the Eagles' best receiver in 2017? Who was it? Alshon Jeffrey. You got Justin Jefferson, T.J. Hawkinson. No Aaron Jones for this game. It's going to be Jordan Mason running the football. With the Eagles, they had LeGarrette Blount and Jay Ajayi. So, Corey Clement as well, who caught a touchdown in that Super Bowl. And then the tight ends, you had Zach Ertz. And I think Brent Selleck was on the team, right? But yeah, I think this is this might be the best supporting cast that Carson Wentz has ever had. I think Carson Wentz could come in this spot, play well, and Vikings, I think, especially with the Bengals' offensive line also not being great, I think the Vikings' defense will take advantage of that. I like the Vikings in this spot. They're favored by 3 points. I like them to win and cover the number there. Then we got a rematch. So a couple of playoff rematches we're going to see over the next couple of weeks pertaining to the Eagles. Next week they'll be taking on the Bucs. You got the Rams taking on the Eagles in Philly. I mean, that was one of the best playoff games last year. A dramatic finish. Rams had a chance to win that game, but Stafford got sacked, and then that turned the third down into 4th and long, and he ended up throwing an incompletion, and the Eagles ended up winning the game. Saquon Barkley ran wild all over the Rams defense, a couple of rushing touchdowns, and then Jalen Hurts also had a rushing touchdown as well. But yeah, I mean the Rams defense really made life tough for Jalen Hurts at certain points in that game. I mean they forced a safety at one point as well. The Eagles haven't played their best football yet. We understand that. Saquon Barkley hasn't had that huge game yet. Could be this week. We'll see. I forget how many yards he had against the Rams last year. I think it was like around 400 yards rushing last year between the two games that the Eagles played against the Rams. But I like the Rams. I like the Rams to pull off the upset here. They're getting the points. Their defense is playing really well. I think the Eagles, you're going to see more of a passing offense with the Eagles. Jalen Hurts is not going to have the same stat line that he had last week against the Chiefs because he didn't really have to do that. The Eagles banked on, good defense and, running the football and making just enough plays. I mean, obviously hitting Devontae Smith late. But, the Eagles are going to have to get A.J. Brown going in this game, get this passing game going. It's going to be high scoring, probably, when these teams usually meet. But I like the Rams to get somewhat even with the Eagles. So I like them to win this game and with the points. So this game now, I'm changing it because I originally had the home team, Bucs and the Jets. So I still think the Bucs are going to win. But the Jets did not perform well last week. Nothing went right for them. Justin Fields gets hurt. The Bills ran the ball up and down the field on them. But now Tyrod Taylor's getting the start. And Tyrod Taylor is a very serviceable backup. And combine that with the fact that the Bucs, they have their own offensive line issues. And I still don't really trust their defense either. I think the Jets can move the ball a little bit in this game. I think they keep it close. I don't think Tyrod Taylor is going to put the ball in harm's way. And I think the Jets will do enough to keep it within the 6.5. But I still think the Bucs are going to win. Now, last year in Week 3, now I'm not saying the Jets are going to go on this type of run, but remember last year, I think it was Week 3, the Broncos went into Tampa and they completely dominated and won that game, against the Bucs. And I think the number was 6.5. Might have been 6.5. Maybe it was a little bit higher, a little bit higher. I'm not saying the Jets are going to go on a Broncos type run, but I think this defense with the pass rush, I think they could get after Baker Mayfield. And Baker Mayfield's a little bit compromised because he got banged up in that game against the Texans. So, like I said, I think the Jets can keep it close, but I like the Bucs to win. All right, so actually this line has gone up. So now we got another matchup of AFC South teams, the Indianapolis Colts, the 2-0 Indianapolis Colts, the undefeated Indianapolis Colts, I meant to say the first place Indianapolis Colts, obviously they're 2-0, they're undefeated right now, against the 0-2 Tennessee Titans, who are 4.5-point underdogs. Colts have been playing really well. Daniel Jones has been playing really well. Jonathan Taylor has been running the football exceptionally well. The Colts still haven't punted. The Colts will punt in this game. I think the Titans will keep it close. I think this game is going to be close. I think they cover this number. I think the Colts eke out a win. I think it's a tough game on the road. We'll see how Daniel Jones fares first road game with the team, but I think he'll do okay based off of how he's been playing. I like the Titans to cover though, so I'll take the Titans to cover, but the Colts to win. Then we got the Raiders and the Commanders. So there's going to be no Jane Daniels this week. No Jane Daniels this week. Raiders looked really bad on Monday night against the Chargers. See, I feel like if I took the Raiders here, now Marcus Mariota last year against the Panthers played really well, and then also he came in relief for Jaden Daniels against the Cowboys, and they put together a game-winning drive. I know that they're 3-point favorites. I like the Commanders. I like the Commanders in this spot. Again, didn't really like what I saw out of the Raiders last week. Again, different kind of game. I think they'll play a little bit better than they did, but I don't know. I just feel like with the Commanders, they're going to put up points, and I don't think the Raiders are going to be able to keep up. Because I think Mariota does well in the system. So, I mean, we got to see how this team runs the football because, now with Austin Eckler being out, I mean, even before Eckler got hurt, they weren't running the ball that great. We're going to see more of Krosky Merritt. And the Raiders are not running the ball well either, even with Ashton Genty. He's still struggling to try to, find the holes and break off a huge run. We haven't seen that yet. I think we're going to see it this year, but we're still waiting on it. So I like the Commanders to win and cover. All right, so now we're in the afternoon games. Big game in the AFC West. You got the Broncos and the Chargers. Chargers swept the season series last year. Broncos coming off of that loss against the Colts. Chargers 2-0. Chargers look really good. I think they win this game. Right now in my spread pool, it's 2.5. I think this game could be within a field goal. So I think the Broncos could cover the 3. But I do like the Chargers to win the game. But these two teams have very good defenses. The Broncos have definitely been able to run the football better than the Chargers. The Chargers really got to figure out this ground game, and I think they will get it going. I mean, Omarion Hampton has only played 2 games in the NFL, and Najee Harris is still, trying to come off of this get away from this eye thing that he had. So I think you'll see a better running game as we move along here in the season. And if they do that, I mean, that just opens up everything for this offense. Justin Herbert has been playing really well. I like the quarterback in this game. Going towards the Chargers, I think they win this game, but it's gonna be close. I think it's gonna be a close game. Saints, Seahawks. Seahawks are 7.5-point favorites at home, coming off of a big win against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Coming off of a huge win over the Steelers, won by a couple of scores. Got the ground game going. Sam Darnold played well. The defense was pretty good. The Saints, to give them credit, look, they're 0-2, but they've been competitive in the 2 losses. Spencer Rattler had 3 touchdown passes last week against the 49ers. I don't know. In this spot, in this hostile environment, I think this defense is going to wreak havoc on that Saints offense. And I think Sam Darnold and that offense will continue to get it going. And I think they win and cover the number. Then we got the Cowboys and the Bears. Bears are 1.5-point underdogs at home right now. Cowboys coming off of that miraculous win against the Giants in overtime. Brandon Aubrey, the 64-yard field goal. The Bears, 0-2. Got 52 points dropped on them last week against the Lions. I'm going to take the Bears. The Cowboys' defense, they can't stop anything. They cannot stop anything. I mean, they let the Giants' offense do whatever they wanted. Russell Wilson had 450 yards passing, and he's not going to have that this week. I can tell you that right now. I think the Bears are going to be able to move the ball against this defense. Look, the Bears' offense looked good in the first half, and then I don't know what happened in the second half. The Lions just ran away with it. The Lions are the better team. I think that this is desperate times. You're 0-2. You're at home. You should be 1-1 at least. You're going up against a poor defense. Look, the Cowboys are going to put up their fair share of points as well because Dak Prescott's playing good football, and Javonte Williams, they found a ground game with Javonte Williams. George Pickens got involved last week. CeeDee Lamb has looked good these first 2 weeks. I think this could be a high-scoring game. But I'm going to take the home team, so I got the Bears. Now all of a sudden, because this line, what did this line originally open at? Let me see this. So the line for this game, I thought it opened at a lower number. So right now the 49ers are 3-point favorites over the Cardinals Because in my spread pool, they were 1.5-point favorites. Now the line jumped. Look, the 49ers defense has played well these first 2 weeks. Robert Saleh being back there has made a huge difference. Mac Jones looked pretty good last week against the Saints. And the Cardinals almost gave a game away. I still don't trust them. And I'm not saying the 49ers are that team that we saw, a couple years ago go to the Super Bowl. But, and the other thing, too, is you go back to last year. I mean, the Cardinals, they swept the 49ers. I think the 49ers want to get even, win this game. So I like the 49ers to win this game. I think Mac Jones plays well. The Cardinals defense, I think is better this year. But I'm going to go with the home team and take the 49ers. 3 points, yeah, it's definitely a lot. Cardinals, I think, could cover the number. But I do like the 49ers to win the game outright. And then, huge game on Monday night. Lions against the Ravens. Ravens are 4.5-point favorites. Look, the Lions looked much more like the Lions this past week against the Bears than the previous week against the Packers. The Ravens are they're 1-1. They should be 2-0. They came off of that big win over the Browns. Look, a couple years ago when these two teams met, the Ravens blew them out. I'm not going to say they're going to blow them out, but I do think they're going to win and cover the number. I think this Lions offense is going to struggle going up against Lamar Jackson and how well he's playing. And Derrick Henry didn't have a big game last week against the Browns. I expect that to change this week. Zay Flowers, you got to deal with him. He's had a big year so far through these first couple games. I think the Ravens win. They cover the number. And I think they make Jared Goff's life tough. And because of that, Lions are going to struggle to move the football and not be able to keep up. So I like the Ravens to win and cover. So that's the final game there. So to kind of run through it, once again, Packers to win, Browns to cover, Steelers to win and cover. Oh, wait, actually, no, wait, hold on. We forgot one more game. The Swifties taking on the Giants at MetLife Stadium. Almost forgot about that. Oh, wow, we skipped over it. Chiefs-Giants, because how I have my CBS app set up, the Giants are at the top rather than being at the bottom because they're one of my favorite teams. So that's why they're listed at the top. So Giants are 6-point underdogs. Chiefs are 0-2. Giants are 0-2. Look, I think the Chiefs are going to win this game. I know the Giants' offense played really well last week, but it was against the Cowboys' defense that is not good. This Chiefs' defense is not going to let Russell Wilson throw for 450 yards. He's going to look more like the Russell Wilson that we saw in Week 1 against the Commanders. So I like the Chiefs to win and cover. I think Mahomes will make plays. Kelsey will probably have a touchdown in this game. See what the status is with Xavier Worthy, because he could be back soon. Actually, is he going to be back for this game, potentially? Let's see. So the latest on Xavier Worthy is limited practice on Thursday. So maybe he does play. We'll see. All right. So I got the Chiefs to win and cover. All right. So to run through the picks again. Sorry about that. Packers to win. Browns to cover. Steelers to win and cover. Falcons to win and cover. The Texans, who are the underdog in this game technically, win with the points as well. Vikings to win and cover over the Bengals. Rams to win with the points and cover. The Jets to cover, but the Buccaneers to win. The Colts to win, but the Titans to cover. The Commanders to win and cover. The Chargers to win. I'll take the Broncos with the 3. The Seahawks to win and cover. The Bears as the underdog to win outright. The 49ers to win. I'll take the Cardinals to cover. And then the Ravens to win and cover. And the Chiefs to win and cover as well. So those are my Week 3 NFL picks. Let me know what you guys think about the picks. You'll probably say you took all the favorites, you took all the home teams, whatever you want. I don't care. That's my opinion. All right? We're already 0-1, so you already can tell where this week is going. But let me know what you guys think. What are your picks for this week? Let me know in the comments. As always, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Greatly appreciate it. Make sure to follow us on the social media platforms in the description below. And wherever you get your podcasts, you can listen to us as well. Just look up Infinite Sports. And until next time, everybody, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off. Have a good one. Talk to you guys next time.